The morning of January 17, 1893, Queen Lili'uokalani of Hawaii woke to the sound of American rifles being loaded outside her bedroom window. Looking out from Iolani Palace, the only royal palace on American soil, she saw 162 Marines and sailors with cannons pointed at her home. She had two choices: watch her people die fighting the United States military, or surrender her kingdom. By sunset, the Hawaiian kingdom will fall. But here's what they don't tell you. 21,269 Native Hawaiians would sign their names saying, "We do not consent." Their voices went unheard. This is the story of how humanity's greatest navigators built paradise in the middle of nowhere, created a kingdom that outpaced America in technology and lost it all in a single day. What you're about to learn will change how you see Hawaii forever. Picture this. You're standing on a beach in the Marquesas Islands around the year 1200. Your grandfather points to the horizon where ocean meets sky. Beyond that, emptiness lies 2,400 miles of Earth's largest ocean. That's like sailing from Los Angeles to Alaska in a wooden canoe with no GPS, no compass, not even a metal nail in your boat. No birds fly from that direction. No driftwood washes ashore. There's literally zero evidence that land exists out there, yet your people are loading double-hulled canoes with everything needed to start civilization: pigs, dogs, chickens, and 27 different crop plants. You're watching families say goodbye forever. These 100 or so voyagers know they'll never see home again. This is a one-way trip into the void. Modern scientists called this voyage impossible. They were dead wrong. But how do you navigate 2,400 miles of empty ocean without instruments? The answer changed everything scientists thought they knew about human capability. At the helm, reading the night sky like we read Google Maps. The Southern Cross points the way, and when it disappears below the horizon, sequential stars rise to guide them. They've memorized hundreds of stars and their precise paths. But the most incredible part, through the wooden deck, they feel ocean swells bouncing off distant land 3 days before it's visible. Their feet are literally detecting islands beyond the horizon. When clouds appear green on the underside, they know a lagoon is reflecting below. When golden plovers fly overhead, land is near. These birds don't sleep on water. The hokulea, a traditional canoe replica, has proven these techniques work, sailing approximately 140,000 nautical miles since 1975, using only ancient navigation methods, including one single voyage from 2014 to 2017 that covered 47,000 nautical miles alone, circumnavigating the Earth using nothing but stars, waves, and ancestral knowledge. After perhaps 3 weeks at sea, the fear sets in. Food is running low. The pigs are seasick. Children cry from thirst between rain squalls. Some begin to whisper, "The navigators are lost. We're all going to die out here." Then someone sees birds, not the wandering albatross, but the white terns that never venture far from land. Someone shouts the word that will echo through generations: "Aina! Land!" The volcanic peaks of Hawaii rise from the horizon like a promise kept. These voyagers, genetic studies suggest just 100 people, don't know they've just discovered Earth's most isolated landmass. They're approximately 2,470 miles from California, 3,850 miles from Japan. The nearest populated land is 1,860 miles away. They've found paradise. Now they have to build it. Within just a few generations, these settlers transformed Hawaii through systems so advanced that modern environmentalists still study them today. They invented the Kapu system. Imagine dividing an island like a pizza, where each slice runs from mountain peak to coral reef. Take the Waikiki Ahupua'a, mountain forests where only ali'i could hunt sacred birds, middle slopes for gathering sandalwood and medicine plants, engineered valleys with taro terraces producing tons of food, and coastal fish ponds that worked like clockwork. Every community controlled all elevation zones. The Konohiki managers knew every tree, every spring, every fish spawning cycle. Water was diverted through hand-carved channels called awai. Some still function today after 800 years. Speaking of fish ponds, Hawaiians built an estimated 488 of them, according to historical surveys, with approximately 360 actively producing around 2 million pounds of fish every year in pre-contact times. Think about that. 2 million pounds of fish, sustainably forever. No boats needed. No risk. Just ingenious rock walls that let baby fish in and kept adult fish trapped. That's roughly 10,000 pounds per active pond, year after year after year. No other Pacific culture achieved this scale of aquaculture. But now the story takes a dark turn. The Kapu system wasn't just religious law, it was genius resource management disguised as divine decree. Women couldn't eat 67 types of bananas. Only 3 varieties were permitted according to historical records. Sounds sexist, right? Wrong. This preserved genetic diversity and prevented over-harvesting. Fishing kapu aligned with spawning cycles. Break the rules? You didn't just lose fishing rights, you might lose your head. The most extreme kapu surrounded the ali'i chiefs. Their divine mana was considered so powerful that if a commoner's shadow touched a high chief, that commoner was executed immediately. No trial, no appeal, instant death. This wasn't tyranny, it was order in a world where one overfished reef meant everyone starved. In this world of sacred power and engineered abundance sometime between 1736 and 1761, with popular tradition claiming 1758 under Halley's Comet, though this date is disputed by many historians, a child was born under a prophecy that would change everything. The night of Kamehameha's birth, priests saw an unusual light in the sky and warned this child would be a killer of chiefs. The ruling chief ordered him to be killed immediately, but the infant was smuggled away in darkness, hidden in Waipio Valley's deep wilderness. For years, the boy lived in secret, trained in warfare and strategy, waiting. When Kamehameha emerged from hiding, he had to prove his destiny. Enter the Naha Stone, a massive volcanic boulder weighing between 2.5 and 3.5 tons. Legend said only the person destined to unite the islands could move it. According to legend, Kamehameha didn't just move it. In front of witnesses, ali'i, who would later become his enemies or allies, the young warrior wrapped his arms around the impossible stone and overturned it completely. The crowd gasped, the earth trembled. Whether through genuine supernatural strength or brilliantly orchestrated theater, it built his reputation as divinely chosen. But prophecies don't conquer kingdoms. For that, Kamehameha needed something the islands had never seen, and it would arrive from across the ocean. January 18, 1778, Captain James Cook's ships appeared on the horizon. 2 days later, on January 20th, his vessels anchored off Kauai. Their white sails looked exactly like the banners of Lonono, the fertility god, and they'd arrived during Makahiki season when Lonono was honored. When Cook later reached Kealakekua Bay, Lonono's sacred harbor, sailing clockwise exactly as Lonono's procession traveled, something remarkable happened. Hawaiian priests performed ceremonies typically reserved for this deity, dressing Cook in sacred red feather cloaks worth more than European mansions, and feeding him by hand like a divine ali'i. Thousands prostrated themselves wherever he walked. Whether Hawaiians genuinely believed Cook was a manifestation of Lono remains one of Pacific anthropology's most debated questions. Scholars continue to argue whether this represented religious belief, political ceremony, or Hawaiian concepts that don't translate into Western religious categories. What's undeniable is that Cook was called Lono and treated with rituals reserved for this god. And Cook, he went along with it. Who wouldn't want to be treated with such reverence? Everything changed when Cook returned with a broken mast on February 11th, 1779. Gods don't return with broken masts. Whispers spread through the village. Maybe he's not Lono after all. 3 days later, On February 14th, tensions exploded. After a theft escalated, Cook shot and killed a Hawaiian chief. Turning toward his boats in waist-deep water, Cook was stabbed from behind with an iron dagger, possibly traded from his own ship, then clubbed and held underwater until he died. The god bled very human blood. Cook was dead, but the damage was done. Hawaiians had seen the power of Western weapons, the crack of gunfire, the devastation of cannonballs. And one young chief was watching, learning, planning. His name was Kamehameha, and Cook's crew had just given him the keys to an empire. In 1790, Kamehameha made the smartest decision of his life. He captured 2 foreign sailors, John Young and Isaac Davis. Instead of killing them, he made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Teach my warriors to use Western weapons, become my advisors, and I'll make you chiefs with land and power. They accepted, married Hawaiian women, and began transforming Kamehameha's army. They were creating a terrifying hybrid, European firepower, guided by Hawaiian tactics. Imagine traditional Hawaiian warriors, masters of spear and war club, suddenly wielding muskets and manning cannons. It was like bringing machine guns to a sword fight. The ultimate test came at the Battle of Nuuanu-Pali in May 1795. Picture this: 12,000 warriors advancing up a valley. Cannon fire echoed off cliff walls, each blast shaking the ground. Oahu's defenders, brave but severely outgunned, were pushed back until they reached the edge of a 1,000-foot cliff, the Pali. What happened next is disputed by historians, and casualty figures from ancient battles are notoriously unreliable, but the accounts are chilling. Historical accounts suggest hundreds of warriors faced a choice: surrender to Kamehameha or jump. They jumped, warriors holding hands, entire battalions choosing death over dishonor, plummeting into the tropical forest below. In 1897 to 1898, road construction for the old Pali Road uncovered approximately 800 skulls at the cliff base, evidence of just how brutal this final battle for unification truly was. Hawaii was united under one throne, and now things got really interesting. After Kamehameha died in 1819, his son Liholiho and widow Kahumanu did something truly unexpected. They abolished their entire religion. In November 1819, they publicly broke the eating kapu, men and women dining together for the first time in centuries. In 6 months, Hawaiians burned their temple idols, demolished their sacred sites, and created a spiritual vacuum. Just as Hawaii abandoned its gods, American missionaries arrived with perfect timing and a printing press. What happened next seemed impossible. Hawaii achieved over 91 to 95% adult literacy by 1834, according to missionary records and University of Hawaii scholars. Let me say that again. Hawaiian farmers were reading newspapers while most Europeans couldn't write their own names. Higher than America's 78%, higher than Britain's 60 to 70%. By 1829, they distributed 140,000 spelling books. By 1831, Hawaii had 1,103 schoolhouses, teaching 52,882 students. This on islands with a total population around 130,000. Over 100 Hawaiian language newspapers flourished between 1834 and 1948. Hawaiians were publishing political debates, scientific discoveries, serialized novels, and preserving their genealogies. They established a constitutional monarchy with a democratic legislature. They signed treaties with Britain, France, and the United States as equals. And get this, Iolani Palace got electricity lighting its grounds in November 1886, and throughout its interior by June 1887. 4 years before, the White House got electricity and lights. Now let that sink in. Native Hawaiian royalty were making phone calls and flipping light switches while the American president was still reading by candlelight. The palace installed telephones by 1883. This island kingdom in the middle of the Pacific was literally more technologically advanced than most American cities. But this modernization came with an apocalyptic cost. When Cook arrived, historians estimate between 300,000 and 800,000 native Hawaiians lived in the islands. Demographer David Swanson's peer-reviewed 2019 research suggests around 683,000. By 1890, census records show only 40,622 remained. The numbers are so staggering they seem fake. The 1804 outbreak, probably cholera, killed 5,000 to 15,000 people. The 1848 epidemics, documented by Schmidt and Nordyke, killed approximately 10,000 in a few months. Measles, whooping cough, dysentery, diseases Hawaiian immune systems had never encountered. Smallpox in 1853 took thousands upon thousands more. Chiefs watched their entire bloodlines end. Samuel Kamakau wrote, "The children would die, their parents would die of grief, and their grandparents would follow them into the grave." Entire villages emptied. Whole valleys went silent. In Wainiha Valley on Kauai, census records documented approximately 2,000 people in the early 1800s. Within decades, the population had collapsed to a fraction of that number. We're talking about a 90% population collapse. Imagine if 9 out of every 10 people you know just disappeared. The knowledge keepers, the navigators, the chanters who held genealogies in their memories, gone. Into this demographic catastrophe came 5 companies that would reshape paradise. 5 companies: Castle and Cook, Alexander and Baldwin, C. Brewer, Theo Davies and Amfac, gradually controlled Hawaii's entire economy. They dominated sugar production, acting as agents for 36 of 38 major plantations by the early 20th century. They owned the ships, the stores, the banks. They imported waves of laborers to replace dead Hawaiians, 46,000 Chinese, over 180,000 Japanese between 1885 and 1924, 125,000 Filipinos. Each ethnic group was deliberately housed in separate camps: Japanese camp, Filipino camp, Portuguese camp, with different pay scales to prevent organizing. The Japanese realized they were paid less than Portuguese workers. The Filipinos realized they were paid less than the Japanese. But the camps were kept separate, so they couldn't unite. Divide and conquer, industrial scale. In 1887, these sugar barons forced King Kalakaua at gunpoint to sign the Bayonet Constitution. Armed militia members surrounded the palace. The king had hours to sign or face revolutionary consequences. The new constitution stripped the monarchy of power and essentially banned native Hawaiians from voting through property requirements. You needed to own substantial land and have significant income. In a single document, 2/3 of Hawaiian voters lost their rights. When Queen Lili'uokalani tried to restore voting rights to her people in 1893, 13 men, mostly sons of missionaries, who came to save souls but whose families now owned the plantations, made their move. January 17th, 1893. The Committee of Safety claimed the Queen was planning violence. She wasn't. U.S. Minister John Stevens, without authorization from Washington, ordered 162 Marines and sailors from USS Boston to take positions around Iolani Palace. Their rifles were loaded, their cannons were positioned. Stevens recognized the committee's provisional government before the Queen even surrendered. She faced an impossible choice: fight and watch her people slaughtered by American military forces, or surrender to prevent bloodshed. She chose her people's lives. But listen to her exact words. She didn't surrender to the committee. She yielded to the superior force of the United States of America until the U.S. government could undo the action of its representatives. She believed America would realize its mistake. She was right at first. President Grover Cleveland investigated through the Blount Report and was horrified. He declared to Congress on December 18, 1893, by an act of war, committed with the participation of a diplomatic representative of the United States, and without authority of Congress, the government of a feeble but friendly and confiding people has been overthrown. The president acknowledged the overthrow was accomplished through unauthorized use of American military force. Cleveland demanded the monarchy's restoration. The Committee of Safety literally just said no. They told the President of the United States, "Make us," and he couldn't. They established their own Republic of Hawaii with Sanford Dole, yes, like the pineapples, as president. And then came the moment that gave me chills. Native Hawaiians didn't give up. In 1897, Native Hawaiians launched the Kapu petitions, those 21,269 signatures documented in the National Archives against annexation. Men, women, children, over half the Native Hawaiian population signed. These weren't just names on paper. These were people who lost their kingdom, their votes, their country, saying with ink and paper, "We do not consent." The petitions worked. They defeated the Annexation Treaty in the US Senate. Hawaii would remain independent. Then the Spanish-American War changed everything. America needed Pearl Harbor as a Pacific base. So Congress did something unprecedented. They annexed Hawaii through a simple resolution, the Newlands Resolution, requiring only a majority vote instead of the 2/3 needed for a treaty. July 7th, 1898. Hawaii became a US territory without the consent of its people. Those 21,269 signatures? Set aside. Queen Lili'uokalani protested until her death in 1917, never accepting the overthrow of her kingdom. She died believing justice would come. Here's what still haunts historians. DNA studies from 2020, published in the prestigious journal Nature, found Native American ancestry in Polynesians from around 1200 AD, exactly when the sweet potato, a South American crop, appeared in Polynesia. Did Polynesians reach South America and return? Did they meet in the middle of the Pacific? We're talking about navigating 4,000 plus miles of open ocean to South America and back. If true, it makes Columbus look like he was taking a ferry ride. The ancient Menehune structures on Kauai used construction techniques different from later Hawaiian methods. An 1820 census in Wainiha Valley listed 65 people specifically as Menehune, out of approximately 2,000 people living in the valley. Were they descendants of earlier settlers or something else entirely? Nobody knows for certain. If Hawaii was settled as late as 1200 AD, as researchers now argue, Hawaiians developed their entire complex society, the Ahupua'a system, the fish ponds, the navigation techniques, the unified kingdom, in just 600 years. That's like going from the Vikings to the iPhone. Today, the Hokulea still sails, using traditional navigation, having traveled over 140,000 nautical miles since 1975, using only the stars. Young Hawaiians are learning their ancestors' language, banned in schools for generations. Ancient fish ponds are being restored and producing food again. Sacred sites are being recovered from beneath shopping malls and military bases. The sovereign Hawaiian kingdom may be gone, but remember those 21,269 signatures. Those were real people who never consented to annexation. Their great-great-grandchildren are now lawyers arguing in international courts, historians uncovering suppressed documents, and activists occupying sacred Mauna Kea to stop telescope construction. The story of Hawaii asks us profound questions. Can paradise exist once it's been discovered? Can sovereignty once lost ever be restored? What does justice look like 130 years after a kingdom falls? Can the descendants of navigators who crossed 2,400 miles of open ocean navigate the even more complex waters of international law and modern politics? The voyage to understand Hawaii's future has already begun. The navigators never forgot the way home. The question is, what does home mean today? And what part of the story shocked you the most? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think justice looks like for Hawaii's history. If this made you see Hawaii differently, subscribe and share this video.